Damn, I'm like 15 minutes late. Oh well. How long did I say 5 minutes? I said that 10 minutes ago. I think it's an ADHD thing, right? Concept of time. Anyway, here we are. We talk about the secrets to handling conflict and relationship conflict effectively. So this is a part three, and yeah, it's you're getting all of the information here from this three-part series. If you're, I know it's long. Total time will probably be about 5 hours. We'll try to get through this quickly here, for you guys and get through my notes. But you're looking at everything you need to know. And I'm not BSing you. And this is for free on the internet. Everything you need to know about handling relationship conflict. There's about 5 things. I won't even go through them to distract us, but there's about 5 things that'll guarantee your relationship failure. Maybe more, but I think I've deduced it to about 5 here, right? And of those 5 things, that one of the top ones is conflict. And the tragedy is about conflict and not handling it properly is that you can have the ingredients of a good long-lasting relationship where two people can really come together and be together for a long time, and then they can't, and they end up not, and it ends up failing due to just mismanagement of conflict on either side of it. And that's a real tragedy because we know that there are relationships that shouldn't even be in the first place. Most of those other reasons why things fail in a relationship has to do with intrinsic reasons that indicate they never should have gotten together to begin with. For example, like her genuine desire and her not seeing him as the best that she could do is a big reason or a marker for a relationship not working out. Is that usually it's the woman who settled or feels like she's settled, and she can't brainwash herself into doing anything different or thinking differently about that guy. So she hopes and dreams that he'll become the man or be the man that she always wanted and be that sexual best for her. But then it never happens, and then she ends up leaving him, divorcing him, or whatever. So that's a big reason. But guess what? That reason is means that the relationship was intrinsically doomed from the beginning. You know what I mean? So it's a relationship that maybe served the couple in the time that they had it, but if her genuine desire wasn't there for the guy, it was doomed to begin with. And so people focus all on that, right? Because women are not always self-aware about what attracts them to a guy, and guys are easily duped in those situations and set up for failure to begin with. And that's a big threat or a fear to a man. And so that tends to be a lot of the focus on things that would make, her not see him as her best option, but yet enter into that commitment and that relationship anyway. So I get that question all the time, which is a tough one to answer. And that's another thing we'll have to talk about in another video. But that's not the biggest tragedy, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like that, in a way, is easy to mitigate for. A bigger tragedy is when you have a couple that everything is there. She sees him as the best, at least in the beginning. He's happy with her. All the stuff and the ingredients are there for a good, healthy relationship to last. And yet they destroy it, and they destroy each other in the process through not handling conflict effectively. And so that's the biggest tragedy. And so we want to mitigate that tragedy. And I'm giving you all the tools and the ingredients here on my channel for free. You just have to have the patience to watch the damn videos and then to do it. And if you're not willing to do the work, I can't help you. Nobody can help you. You're just going to fail. And that's your fault. You know what I mean? So that's it, And so you have to do the work. You got to watch what stick around. If you have questions, throw it in the chat. Okay. Put a super chat on it because it helps the algorithms, and I'll see your question and it won't get buried in my notes, and I'll make sure that I can answer it. All right. There's no promise on me answering something if you guys throw a question in without it being attached to a super chat. So what did we talk about last time? So to quick review, and you have to go back and watch part 1 and part 2, but we talked about, you know, um, some gender differences in partner selection in the beginning, right? And well, we talked about, the sort of the way that the male and the female brain works differently in conflicts. And so that's really important to understand. So you want to go back into that. But I have to give a quick warning about, you know, partner selection here, okay? Your partner, to handle conflict properly, both you and your partner have to be able to be capable of having healthy conflict management skills. All right. And so if you enter into something with somebody and she's not um capable, okay, of handling conflict well, you're never going to survive. The relationship will not last. She doesn't belong in a commitment with you. She needs to remain as a casual partner while you date other women to find a different person. And I know that sounds cold or whatever to some of the newbies here, but and I'd say the same advice for a woman. Don't be in a commitment. Don't even waste, if it's a woman, don't even waste your vaginal sensations on that man if he can't handle conflict well. All right. Now, does that mean that he has to be perfect or she has to be perfect? No. In fact, chances are you and her are going to be messed up. Otherwise, you wouldn't be needing this video, and so many people wouldn't need it. Notice the word is capable. Okay, meaning your ego investment and your level of emotional self control is not so far gone, right? That you can do the work to learn these skills and to start showing up to your relationships better and handling these conflicts better. So, guys, like, she's not going to have good conflict management skills when you first start seeing her. She probably won't. Okay. Now, that said, all right, that doesn't mean you throw her away. What you're looking for is capabilities. When you start making, like, hey, this is not how we handle each other, right? We are going to do it like this. And this is not how we handle, when you do that, that's not healthy. We're not going to keep doing that. When she does toxic patterns, or you do, a guy does toxic patterns, either one, and you say, hey, we're going to set up some standards and parameters here, that's not the standard for our relationship. That's not how we handle each other. And then you see her agreeing with that and working on a better way. That's demonstrating capability. If you mess up, okay, as a guy, and you do something that doesn't quite fit a healthy pattern of handling conflict, when you can own that and say, that's not, I did that, that's my bad. That's not exactly how this should go. So this is how it should go instead. And then you work towards it. You're demonstrating capability, right? And so it's being able to correct mistakes. It's being able to recognize, okay, that argument got really bad. Let's hit the rewind button and let's try this again. You could do that for a year and a half of, beating your head against the wall with each other every time there's a conflict, but getting better each time, and have great opportunity for success. If everything else, of course, is right in terms of your attraction and desire for each other. So as long as you and the woman that you're with, and by the way, this video and the other two parts do apply to both genders. All right. It's both men and women can apply these skills. I tend to talk more to the guys because I have more of a male audience, but this is one thing that's a little bit, these skills are something that both men and women need to be aware of. Right. But that said, yeah, like, as long as you're improving, as long as you're recognizing the problems and the faults, as long as you're following the program essentially that I'm laying out in this video and in my other two videos in the series, then you're demonstrating capability. She's demonstrating capability. Everything will be just fine. When she's not willing, okay, to when she's not willing to, work on conflict or whatever, in a healthy manner. And when emotions aren't high and you are saying, listen, we need to do this better, and she's not agreeing, not willing, not participating, then she's not demonstrating that she is a worthy or healthy partner. And that is an important thing. All right. It's really important for you guys who follow my stuff, especially you guys who are behind the paywall in my mastermind group and in some of my things. Your game is really good. You know how to game women. You know how to, communicate and get the emotional buy-in and get and build desire, be attractive. So the women with healthy or with unhealthy, toxic arguing patterns will still stick with you for a while, but they won't fix this problem. You'll just rope them back in with your game. So that needs to be recognized. You need to recognize that as an issue because you will stick in a relationship because it's not like you're arguing and having conflict every day. You might have conflict, once every month or two or something like that, right? And so, but when these conflicts happen, she's just so poor at managing them and she's not committed or willing to get any better. Like you may be able to game her and pull her back in, but that doesn't mean, that it's going to be healthy and it's going to continue that way. If these problems don't solve, there is no relationship. So don't be in a relationship with someone unless they demonstrate capability. It is a two-way street. It's not just you. You may have had things that you do wrong. Like as you watch this video series, you might go, oh man, dude, I do that wrong. I do that wrong too. You'll have light bulbs going on, but understand that nobody's perfect. And that doesn't make it all your fault because you do A and B and C wrong. She's also doing a list of things wrong as well, most likely. And if she's unwilling to change those things, just because you've done some things that are not good in conflict, or that maybe on a conflict, it's, here or there, you've mismanaged a conflict. That doesn't mean that she's now the perfect one and it's all up to you. Right. And vice versa, of course. Right. It's a two-way street. Both people need to be willing to fix their problems. And if the other person is too arrogant and too egotistical and too ego invested and not self-aware enough to be able to recognize these patterns and to be able to start fixing things with you, there is none of these techniques will work or sustain or have any sustainability. All right. I mean, I'll say they'll work, but they'll work in a limited sense, so that's a really important point. You got to pick one of your major things for vetting a chick is she capable of handling conflict well? And a lot of you guys don't. You focus on that. You focus on other stuff. You focus on genuine desire, for example, which is important, but you don't know what constitutes genuine desire. Well, I'll tell you this. Her commitment to wanting to change how she handles her conflicts, her commitment to wanting to be better in your relationship and to show up and be better at managing, problems, conflicts, managing her emotions, her commitment to that. So she doesn't lose you. And also simply because she sees you as the dominant leader. If you're the man in the relationship, she sees you as the dominant leader and she wants to be with you, wants to follow that program, right, of handling conflicts in a healthy way. Those are indicators of her desire. Not to say that if she doesn't do those things that she must not desire you. Some are just too toxic and too imprinted in bad patterns in order to be willing or able to change it, right? Some just are indoctrinated with toxic behaviors and they've been that way since they were children and they're unwilling to change and they're unable to change. So they could have all the genuine desire for you, but they can't fix the way that they handle conflict. But a woman who, I'll tell you this, although she could have the genuine desire and still not be able to manage conflict well or be willing to fix it, one thing is for sure, a woman isn't working on herself to fix her conflict management skills if she doesn't have genuine desire. A guy that she sees as the sort of the beta male that she's not that interested in or whatever, she's looking for a low conflict relationship, period, not one that has a high desire and therefore brings up high anxiety and dread and therefore might bring up more conflict. She's looking for a dull, unexciting time with a weaker man that she, thinks is going to be a better deal for her. And so she won't have the patience of giving up the control that she feels she has with her toxic patterns. She will lean harder into toxic arguing patterns when she's with a guy that is not her best. Whereas she will try to fix those patterns if she is capable of it, and recognizing the patterns, she will try to fix them when she's with a guy with where she desires him and has a genuine desire, right? So her ability to manage conflict for anything a long-term relationship, anything past just casual sex and hanging out and having fun, conflict management needs to be a number one priority for you guys. All right. Because without it, you won't survive. It won't last. All right. Now, quick announcements on some things is I still have room in my mastermind group running, taking new members unless I get full, and I have to pull back till the end of the year. After the first of the year, the price for my year-long program will go up because there's more contact. There's more content now, a higher membership, higher levels of support, and so you need to get into that program within the next few weeks here, before the first of the year for sure, if you want to. Otherwise, it's going to be more expensive to be in it. And so the link is in the description for a free consult if you want to work with me for a year. Because these skills that I'm giving you guys, you might be able to action them, but there's a good chance that you have to recondition a lot of your own behaviors and the way that you think and the way that you approach women. And it's good work, and but it's going to take work. And here's the thing, you're going to do a lot of work anyways. It's just a question of whether you're going to do a lot more work by being unsuccessful with women in this area of your life, right? And screwing it up a bunch and redoing things, or whether you're going to do a lot less work with doing an initial investment of getting into my group and having some course material and having some Zoom calls and getting a better mental framework for how to solve these problems. So that's a year-long program. I also have the Alpha Mindset Summit, which will open up next month. Stay tuned for that. And for free, you need to get on my newsletter, so you'll get that announcement, number one. And number two, you'll get a free guide to how to cheat-proof your relationship. So if you haven't gotten on my newsletter for the email list and all that, I don't send out spam. It's only good stuff. But that free guide is pretty sweet, and it'll tell you how to cheat-proof for your future success. And even if you don't think you have that problem now, it's good for everybody to understand, okay? So that's for free, and that's for you. So just click on the damn link and throw your email address in and get it. All right, so now let's review. So we have the warning. You have to, partner selection is critical, all right? Capability is critical. We talked about the magic ratio, 1 to 5, right? But again, it's of equal or similar intensity. The model just illustrates that you need to have, several positive interactions with your woman to counteract just one negative. And they figure it to be a 5, to 1 ratio, 5 positive to 1 negative, but that's of similar intensity. So if it's a really intense bad argument, it's going to take a lot more than 5 smaller positive, lower emotionally invested events to counteract the effects of the negative or bad argument. And this is how the death by 1,000 cuts happen, right? Because a series of bad things and bad interactions with your significant other continue to happen, and you have good stuff on top of it, but the bad will start to outweigh the good. Even though the bad may be less frequent, it has a harder and more of a serious effect. And so if it's like a 1 to 3, 3 positive or 4 positive to every one, or if you have a series of negative interactions because you're arguing with your chick for a week or in some conflict for, several days, her emotions start to go down for you. Her desire starts to pull off, and she starts to devalue you in her head. Even if you're the best SMV that she's ever had, doesn't matter. You can look at some of these guys who have high SMVs. They don't keep their women. All right. And it's not because they're letting them go, despite what they tell you. Not all the time, and not even most of the time. So it doesn't matter how high your SMV is. It does certainly gives you a more leeway to screw up for sure when you have high SMV, sexual market value, high value guy, whatever, high value woman, right? But that only goes so far. You will erode your relationship away if you do not have, reduce the effects of these negative events. And the biggest way to reduce the effect of a negative event is to handle conflict well. All right. The better you handle the conflict, the less serious the negative effects are going to be. And in order to do that, you have to have a proper understanding of the power balance in your relationship, dominant and submissive roles. We talked about that. Okay. And it's and then also you have to have emotional mastery and self-awareness, right? And because without those things, you will not be able to execute the skills that I'm imparting. And then last time we talked about timing of the argument, right? Like the I say argument, it's not like an argument, but the handling that conflict, the discussion, and timing it, right? So in other words, preventative being a big thing. Talked to a number of clients this week who are like, dude, I avoid, or I don't say things because I don't want a conflict, and then I end up having a conflict later when I could have just dealt with it early when it was small. Right. That's preventative. Okay. Most of your stuff should be frame announcements, and it should be getting ahead of a conflict before it even happens. That's how you will mitigate a lot of problems, both men and women. Okay. You're not communicating enough prior to something bad happening. You wait for something bad to happen, and then everyone reacts to it. It's the wrong way of doing it. All right. And then the immediate. A lot of you guys respond immediately because you don't have emotional self-control. Most things do not require an immediate response. All right. Most things, let's say she does something you don't like, crosses the boundary or whatever. If it's not a severe boundary cross with a lot of disrespect in public and all that stuff, which shouldn't happen a lot to you, or else you're probably in a very toxic relationship and you have deeper problems to deal with. But it's mostly something where you can compartmentalize that, hold on to it, and then have a discussion at a better time, right? Versus having an immediate reaction. And even if it's something that requires immediate reaction, I talked about this in the last video, having a tactical pause and handling that immediate reaction properly with, properly with a calibrated response. And so I got some trolls apparently. I don't know who the trolls are. I'm not gonna pay attention, but I'm gonna ignore them for now. If you guys are trolling my chat and not staying on topic, right? If you got some problem, I got my friend John here from Modern Life Dating. You got a problem with John and you want to bring it up in my chat, I'm just gonna have to kick you off the chat, all right? Because that's not the discussion. Go take it up with him. All right. I don't have a problem with John. He's my friend. And he's got a good show. In fact, go to Modern Life Dating and watch some of his live streams. So let's focus now on the topic, because this is what's going to actually save your ass, not some BS internet stuff, right? Okay. So got the announcements done. All right, cool. So, we're going to focus now in this episode on how to actually have the conversation. All right. So we talked a lot about the theory, the psychology. Now you're going to have some brass tacks stuff, how to handle the conversation that you have to have with her. All right. And this is that well-timed discussion. Last time we talked about the immediate response more and how to handle it. And if you have questions about that, throw it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer. All right. But this time let's talk about, all right, that well-timed response. Now, first of all, let's say something happens. Let's say she says something that indicates maybe that she lied about, some guy she used to bang in her past or something like that. But it's what she says, nobody notices it. And, and so then nobody notices that there's a problem or a boundary cross. Understand a lot of times women will do that on purpose too. to try to have power over you. Sorry, ladies in the chat. This is, I gotta, we're gonna talk about male, female nature sometimes. A lot of times it's me talking about bad things women do. That doesn't mean you do it. All right. You just gotta accept that that's what a lot of guys are looking for on my channel anyway. But sometimes there are women out there that will intentionally cross a boundary in such a way where I'm innocent. I didn't do anything, in order to try to get a reaction out of you. And then when you react poorly to what she just did, then she gets to have power over you now by being victimized by your reaction. See, you are just insecure and you are just, out of line and you're just crazy and how you responded. And, I did this little thing and I get what you're saying, but you're messed up. You see what I mean? And so don't allow for that manipulation. It's a baiting tactic. It's called baiting. I'll talk about that more and other things. But some women will bait you into an immediate reaction because she knows it's a trigger point for you. But she'll do it in such a way where other people in a social scenario won't notice. All right. And so here you are stewing and being mad about something when she's just, baiting you. And then she gets to go, well, what's wrong with you? You see what I mean? It's a way of It's a way of gaslighting too. So we'll recognize that. And if a woman is doing that, then in a proper conversation, you need to be able to call out that behavior. And I'll tell you how to do that here in a few. And if she can't fix that behavior, and if she's doing this stuff on purpose and she's not fixing it, then she's a manipulative woman and maybe you need to next her. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, all right, Moose, I told you once, right? So I got to put you out for a little while. All right. So anyway, so yeah, so you don't want to you don't want to fall victim to being baited, and you don't want to be with somebody who's going to intentionally always try to shit test you like that. Do you know what I mean? That's not a good scenario to be in. So you need to remove yourself from that kind of a commitment if it continues. That being said, though, you don't want to have that immediate reaction. So what do you have to do, though? And I said this in the last video, you have to let it go and like it didn't happen, and you compartmentalize it. This is where your emotional self-control happens. All right. And so you need to let it go, have a great night, like nothing happened. All right. Do not do what women tend to do, which is punish the behavior. Okay. And I hear what I mean by punishing the behavior, because that word gets thrown out a lot. So I need you to understand what I mean by it. Punishing, punishing because you're building resentment for her for something she did is womanly behavior. All right. So there's a difference between punishing and consequence. Punishing is like, I'm going to act mad and emotionally off because she said something I didn't like and then she has to go, what's wrong? And then I go, nothing, or we'll talk about it later or whatever. And I'm intentionally allowing or permitting my emotions to, be thrown off by her behavior. It puts you in the weaker position when you do that. That's what women do, right? The infamous, okay, what's wrong? I'm fine. We'll talk about it later. We're okay. I'm whatever. And then they want to punish you by being in an attitude, passive aggressively. That is what the less dominant person in the relationship does. So if that's you, and that's the message you're sending if you do that you're not the dominant person in this relationship. You don't have frame. If you're the one who is getting mad and butthurt, but I'm not going to bring it up because I watched this great show and Paul said to talk about it later. So I'm going to talk about it later. So, but now until I talk about it, I'm going to be mad and upset to let her know that I'm upset. So then she goes, what's wrong? And then I go, well, we'll talk about it later. You know what I mean? Like, that is some womanly shit. All right. And you don't want to do that. And we've all done it. All right. Everybody here has done that before. Okay. But when you think about it, that's what the person in the weaker position does because it's passive aggressive. So what you want to do is maybe she says something you don't like, you give her a look. She kind of knows what happened, and then you just kind of go back like nothing happened. She knows what happened. She knows what's up. If there's a conversation later or a serious boundary discussion, you know what I mean? She knows it's coming. You don't need to sit here and be, I'm going to pout and be mad and then not talk about it and then make her, try to figure out my feelings or what's wrong. That's not her job. That is a weaker thing to do. And you guys are killing your relationships with that kind of behavior. So don't do that. You're also killing your relationships with having an emotionally uncontrolled immediate reaction to things. Okay. So you can't do that. Those are two very weak things. And she needs to feel your strength and respect and trust and know your strength in order to follow it and follow you. And that behavior is making her feel your weakness and the power that she has over you. And so it's not good. Okay. So you don't want to punish. All right. Now, consequences are different. Consequences is like she's acting unpleasant to be around. Right. And because she's acting unpleasant to be around, I'm gonna run some errands and hit the gym. I'll talk to you later. I'm not gonna pout now and stop around the house. But if like she's acting unpleasant, I'm like, are you all right? Like, what's the matter? No, nothing. I'm fine. Okay, cool. So then I'm gonna say, all right, well, you seem to be in a bad mood. No big deal. You figure it out. I'm gonna run to the gym and run some errands, and then you leave. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Right? That's not the same as punishing behavior. That's having a boundary. And the boundary is I don't want to be around someone who's unpleasant. And so I'm going to take myself out of that situation. And that's the consequences. She doesn't get to be around you. Right. Maybe she does something and you got to cut it and end a date or like it's bad, right? Or whatever. And you have to end a date early. It requires more of an immediate reaction. It's not to punish her. It's because you're not going to allow her to cross boundaries, right? And not have consequences. So consequences are okay, but punishing through emotional manipulation is womanly. So understand the difference between those two. So when you go to have that conversation later, she might not even see it coming, and that's okay. That's probably a good thing. All right. Learn to let things go in the moment and then bring them up at a more productive time. Just shutting your mouth and going on with the evening and having that no F's given attitude about whatever and have fun as if it did not, whatever offense, whatever thing happened, you're not going to worry about it right now because you know that the outcome's going to be good regardless. And that's, in a sense, an outcome independent sort of mindset. Whatever the outcome is with this discussion we're going to have, it's going to be fine because I'm the man in this relationship. I have frame. I know her and I know the type of woman she is. I know the type of guy I am. I know the strength that we have. And if I miscalculated that, we're not going to last or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Then okay, I guess, you know what I mean? Then that's what happens. But I mean, then that'll be okay too, right? If it ends that, I guess, then that's the conclusion of it. Then good. If it sticks together, we're stronger than good. Like I'm not worried about it. We're just gonna have a good night. You see what I mean? Learn to compartmentalize. I have the mindset summit happening, so you guys can learn these things. And those of you who have already bought the mindset course, go back into that stuff. You should be doing those activities a little bit every single day to sharpen your mind. If you're working your body out, right, to take care of your body, you need to work your mind out too, so you can handle these things. So now we know what to do there, right? And you're going to bring it up. And remember what I said, if you watch the last two segments, you're bringing it up in a time where things are relatively good and peaceful. You don't want to bring up conflict when things are heated and emotions are high. Oh yeah, well that thing you did last week, let's talk about that, because she's in it when she's in a bitchy mood. All right, you don't want to do that. You want to have that quiet time, a time where you guys are just in conversational peace. That's when you bring up, okay, the things. And remember, when you bring it up, how you bring it up is the thing. All right. So is what's going to help you. Okay. And yes, so I mean, we have a question I do spot here. Is there exercises to prep the mind for these situations? Yes. Alpha mindset course. You have a problem with impulse control. Alpha mindset course. That's why I have that course put together, because your game is compromised. Okay. Until you can get good control over your mind. All right. And so that's why I have those things there available to you. And I'll have the Alpha Mindset Summit next month, which will include the course and some Zoom calls. We can talk about those things. All right. And so that's what you need to do, is to do that. Okay. Now let's talk about the phases of an argument. So that's how you're going to bring it up when things are peaceful, and I'll talk about how in a second. Now, what about she brings it up? She has a problem, so she brings up a problem, because that happens probably more often to you guys out there. Is that you? She's upset, or she's not emotionally in a good state, right? So she brings up something that is bothering her, whatever, and she may bring it up inappropriately too, right? So let's talk about that. But first, to understand that, you have to understand that there are what's called 4 phases of an argument. Now, there's conflict where there's a friction point. You don't have an agreement and an understanding of each other's point of view or a plan to go forward yet. And so there's friction and there's tension, and you have a conversation and communication. It's not technically an argument because you're both on the same side of the table, where you're both willing to admit each other's faults, to, take on personal ownership of faults, and make corrections. And it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's about solutions, right? That's a discussion. When it graduates to an argument, which means now you're trying to win against the other person, if she brings something up and it's an argument, it's because she brings it up with the intention of trying to win against you, versus trying to solve a problem and take ownership for her part of it. You're now in an argument. Okay, whether you want to be or not, you're in that. And the phrase "don't argue with a woman" does apply here. Okay. So what are you going to do? Well, first you have to understand the phases. So phase 1 is attack and defend. All right. So when two people argue, they're trying to win, and so they're attacking each other, and they're trying to defend each other. Defend themselves, attack the other person. That's the thing. That's phase 1. Never participate in a discussion when she is mentally in phase 1. Don't allow yourself to get roped into this attack defend thing. This is especially true over things like text message. All right. When it can be depersonalized, and the communication can be depersonalized through a screen, and you're going to text now back and forth. And the goal of the conversation and the texting isn't to try to come up with solutions and take ownership. The goal is, to win over the other person. Then that's not going to work. All right. Because especially for you guys, but that is how you will create massive negative experience and feelings, which will throw that magic ratio off, right? Because she is now in a process of defending herself and attacking you. Her goal, which is always to be the good chimpanzee, as I call it, or the good person, whereas your goal is to be the useful person. Her goal, and her mammalian brain goal of wanting to be the good person, has to demonize you and devalue you and make you into the bad person in order to make herself into the good person, even if she's the person at fault. She has to do that, and she will manipulate any way possible to make that happen. All right, that's her natural state. That's naturally what she's going to do. So asking her not to do that is like asking her not to do what's coming very natural for her. All right. And so this is why you don't get into arguments. If she is in that mentally an attack defend phase, then you have to not have that discussion. And this is where you basically put it on pause. An argument is fueled by emotions and feelings of threat. Feelings of threat put her more into a fight or flight mode, and you in a fight or flight mode. And then you're not clearly thinking or solving problems, and you're certainly not having gratitude or appreciation for your partner, or acceptance for your partner either, right? And so This is how relationships, have enough of these arguments, and you will erode the relationship into where she doesn't see your value anymore, or you don't see hers for that matter, which is a real shame because when you first got together, there was a ton of value you saw in each other, and maybe you were very compatible. And now you've destroyed that through conflict. And that's how this happens. So phase one is attack defend. You don't participate in that. Phase two is effective repair. This is where, okay, they're kind of wanting to, okay, I shouldn't have said that thing that attacked you. All right. They're kind of wanting to repair things here after the damage they've done. You know what I mean? And you're welcome, sir. Of course. I helped actually a lot of people yesterday, but you were one of them. I'm glad I was able to take your emergency call yesterday. But 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 yeah. And so at any rate, this is where it's like, okay, I shouldn't have said that, or okay, I'm all right, whatever. There's some of that might happen in this phase. They're not willing to concede their points, concede the argument. They're not willing to, you know, they're just not they're not wanting to attack you anymore. They're still going to defend themselves and their point. They still think that they're right and righteous and unwilling to take any responsibility for any fault other than maybe some attacks that were out of line on you during phase one. That's the effective repair. It's like, okay, well, I understand why. Let's just not be mad at each other. Let's stop attacking each other. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said some of those things, but you shouldn't have said those things to me. And I'm still mad at you because you shouldn't have done A, B, and C. Like, she's still righteous in her argument, but she just wants at least this fighting to stop. That's the effective repair. That's phase two, right? Now, phase three is collaborative mode. This is where she's actually willing to collaborate with you. She still thinks she's right, and she's still self-righteous in her opinions, and she's still very cautious about being seen as a bad chimpanzee, and she's still not wanting to take blame for things, okay? It's still about her being right. It's not about solutions yet, but she's at least willing to talk with you and hear your side of it. She's at least willing to collaborate. And that's phase three. And then phase four is admittance. This is where each individual can admit the personal responsibility that they have in the situation and in the fault and the wrong, and they can become solution focused, right, to solve a problem. Phase four is now you're in a healthy discussion, right? A healthy discussion involves both individuals being willing to say, I could do this better or I did this wrong when needed. And then focusing not on who's right or who's wrong or trying to win, but being on the same side of the table and being solution focused. That's phase four. Emotionally, when she's hurt or distraught or whatever, her fight or flight mode won't allow her to do phase four right away. So what you do is you essentially soft next her until she can. Now, a soft next is not stonewalling. Some people do this soft nexting the wrong way. Those of you have heard the term before, where you basically just ghost your partner. That's stonewalling. You don't want to do that. Okay. And so, I'm getting this an interesting question here. How do you defeat a woman who won't listen? Well, first of all, you're not trying to defeat her. That's your first problem. You're trying to solve a problem. It's not about defeating her. That's attack defense stuff. Because if you defeat the woman, you lose anyway. If she defeats you, she loses. She loses because she loses attraction for you. You lose because by defeating her, she loses a sense of safety for you. And it throws, it creates a negative imprint now in your relationship that now has to be counteracted by a bunch of positive things, right? And if she holds grudges or has attachments issues, there might not be enough positive things to counteract enough of these negative things. So see, already the mental framework is wrong there. Your mental framework needs to be, we're going to fix problems, not I'm going to beat you in this. All right. Men and women are by nature divisive. So they come to these problems with that mindset. You need to be more self-aware than that now and take yourself out of that mindset. Because if you don't do it, she won't. Okay. So when she is in this spinning around conflict mode, you need to exit that conflict until she can have a healthy discussion with you. And you simply say, hey, look, emotions are high right now. I'm about to tell you. So he's asking, what does soft next mean? Soft next is a hard next would be like, whoops, I just got so all right. A hard next is like we're no longer in a relationship anymore and I no longer want to see you. That's a hard next. A soft next is like, I don't want to see you right now. And that doesn't mean for several months. It's not a breakup. Okay. It's like, let's not talk for the next 10 minutes because you're crazy right now. And I'm crazy right now. Let's not talk for the next 2 hours. Let's not talk for the next 2 days. All right. It's a short amount of time where you take time apart from each other and you give her time to process her emotions and it gives you time to think and process yours. That's what a soft next is. But it's a healthy thing to do because if emotions are high and negative and everyone's in a negative bias, a healthy thing to do is um and no, I'm not saying taking a break from the relationship commitment and going and banging other people. Very important. A soft next, I'm going to take a few days to think and then let's talk in a few days isn't we're on a break and you can now sleep with somebody else in the 2 day period that we're not talking. So it's not a break in the commitment. It's just, and that's why it's a soft next. A hard next is a break in the commitment. A soft next is just like we're not in each other's faces, right? And if you live together, you just avoid each other. You're not in each other's faces. Okay. And so it's are you guys like I hope you guys are not I mean, can we lower the level of autism a little bit, just a little bit? All right. I'm not talking about a break, right? You are just you know that, right? I'm not talking about a break from like that. I'm talking about time apart. You guys understand? All right, fuck. Anyways, so you're taking time apart from each other so that emotions can get under control. All right, that's what a soft next is. Now, some guys will do this where they'll just walk out stoically and not say anything, and then not return her text or calls. Well, that is a recipe for her to go bang someone else. If you don't talk to her for 4 days and you don't return her calls, that's stonewalling. And she thinks, well, he must have left me, broken up. I don't know what's going on here. And she bangs someone else. Most won't, okay. But if she does, you know, and so, and no, I'm not getting upset. I'm making sure I clarify people because it's, you know, God, so some people get it and other like, fucking code gets it. And then like, somebody will say something. I'm like, dude, are you understanding what I'm saying? Anyway, so, but because this is interactive, I do try to interact with you guys. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, it's a healthy thing to do though. And but what you do is you want to preface it with a statement like, listen, we're too heated right now, and we're not going to sit here and attack each other. We're going to talk about it like two adults who love each other or care about each other, whatever your language is. But let's take 10 minutes and cool off, or I'm gonna go for a walk, or I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go to the gym for a little bit. Let's cool off. Let's think about it. Let's try to have a healthy conversation when I come back. You do not allow the conversation to continue under the terms of argument and negative bias. All right. And so that's what you have to do. You have to let those emotions calm down. Okay. And and so you have to let her cool off. And she may go through all four phases, get to phase 4 because she took 2 days from you and you took 2 days from her. It's not a breakup. It's just, she's thinking about it. You're thinking about it. She's taking time to sleep on it and calm down. Okay. Cause it's some intense thing for her. She brought up some intense argument or fight. She wins. She wants to beat you or win the fight by getting you in attack defend mode, making you the bad person for the things that you say, and then getting you to concede so she feels safe. It's a level of power that she wants to have because she doesn't trust now the frame of the relationship for whatever reason. And so she wants to have power over you through an argument. and to get you to be defensive and to get you to concede to her wishes and control. And once again, if you do that, you now have become less attractive, usually for the most part. Okay. Even if she gets what she wants, she's not as attracted to you. If she doesn't get what she wants, then she might be more attracted to you, but she'll be more frustrated with you as well. And also feeling less safe with you, which is another way she'll break it off or leave you or devalue you. She could be very, very attracted to you and leave you because she doesn't feel that she's safe in that commitment and that her needs will get met. And so either one of those solutions aren't good. And as the man and as a woman too, if a guy's out of control, I mean, as the other person in the relationship, but especially as the male leader, you are in charge of this framework for a discussion. Okay. And you set the conditions and the standards for a discussion. And if she can't abide by those conditions and standards, then she's not a worthy partner. See, and that's what I mean about capable, right? Remember in the beginning, I said she has to be capable of doing this with you. And that means she has to get emotional self control, being able to have a conversation with you that is solution focused and not focused on attacking the other person. If she can't do that, then she's not a worthy relationship partner. Okay. It goes nowhere. She has to be capable of doing these skills. And a lot of you guys get so used to being in it with women. And some of you women are in it with men who have these toxic arguing patterns, and you've accepted that as normal. That's not normal. And but maybe if it is common, that's not healthy. And so you have to be willing to accept healthy and not accept unhealthy. And that's what that soft next does. And not participating in these phases. Okay. And coming to a discussion where you listen to her, understand her needs as the man, she feels heard and understood. You bring up and then you set the direction. All right. So now let's get into that because that's what we're going to talk about now, how to enter this discussion in a healthy way. Okay. I'll comment on that though. Yes, some of you are further than others, and I will be patient with you, but I'm also a damn coach. And so I might smack you over the head and say, come on, dude, let's get your shit together. All right. That's part of my job. All right. So, don't take it too personally or have thin skin, because if you do, I'm going to tell you to stop being a bitch and to do what I'm saying and to be better, because I've had good coaches tell me the same fucking thing. All right. And that's part of what, that's what it is. It's not me, disregarding somebody's whatever, devaluing you. It's me waking you up and helping you out. That's part of the job here. Right. So now back into it. You're going to have this healthy discussion. And entering the discussion, ideally, both partners need to have, but you as a man too, okay, you need to have the action plan in mind. So there's this conflict, right? Or there's a boundary crossing, there's something you're in disagreement with, or whatever, or there's a friction, right? You need to have, okay, how do I want this to be solved? At least an idea of it. You may not have the full plan in place because might need more information from her, but you have an idea of how you'd want to proceed. Hey, if she says this or this, maybe I want to go in this direction versus this direction, whatever it is. Okay. So don't just show up unprepared, having not thought about it, having thought, because it's your job as a man to lead this into a productive place. And so don't show up with no plan and no idea how to do that. Okay. That's you not doing the job as a man. All right. And with the woman, don't show up with your idea and your plan as the only answer to the problem. All right. This is a collaborative effort. And that's to you too with the guy, right? You have to be flexible. And that's the most important thing with that. And so you're also approaching this discussion with gratitude for your partner. So pre-hand of this argument, think about, even if you have to do it as elementary level of, I'm going to list 5 things I appreciate about him in my own head, or write it in my journal before I show up to this discussion. Maybe you guys start off with 5 things and you list them, which sounds super dumb and whatever, but it works for some people. If that's your relationship, that's fine. You know what? A good way to start one of these things is to embrace each other, make out, even have sex before. I know it sounds crazy, but think about it. If you guys how if you guys have physical closeness with each other for at least, let's say, a 5-minute period before now having a difficult discussion, how much easier is it to have gratitude and a level of forgiveness for your partner? You know what I mean? And so if the sex is on point, I'm all about, I'll actually bang my partner. Let's have sex first, let's bang it out. Get rid of a bunch of negative tension and then have the discussion. It's a technique. Now, sometimes, you know, she's not she's not able to have sex like in that because that's a whole frame thing because her mood and her negative bias makes it hard for her to let go and have a sexual experience. That's a thing that you work on in a frame situation, right? Where sex becomes a solution to a bunch of problems. That's a reframing of how sex should be in your relationship, but that's a whole nother topic here, right? Um, and yeah, and exactly, she'll be filled with oxytocin and serotonin, more so than the oxytocin, but serotonin. You'll be filled with serotonin as well. Serotonin is the happy, chill chemical, right? You're going to fill yourself with happy chillness. And now you're going to have a discussion about a difficult topic. What a great way to solve a problem and not to get overly emotional. All right. So these are just some ideas, but different relationships will have different ways of doing it. But the point is, at least for yourself, you show up and you want to be focused on being willing to forgive this person. Because if you're not willing to forgive them, then it needs to be a breakup. You see what I mean? If you don't have gratitude for your partner, then it needs to be a breakup. Okay. So we want to hold on to these negative feelings about our partner for our own safety, right? Like if I'm too emotionally invested, then blah, I don't know, she'll harm me in some way. If you're the guy, if you're the alpha person in the relationship, if you have good emotional self-control and you have a good relationship, you shouldn't be worried about that. You know what I mean? If you are, then there's more work we need to do. So you show up with appreciation for your partner, and she should show up the same way. And you need to vocalize this too. You may need to literally train your girl how to have these discussions. You may have to say, look, just come here, sit in my lap, and you just embrace her for a while and tell her, I love you, right? And you love me. Even though you're mad at me, you still love me. All right, let's talk now. Right? You might need to do that for a few minutes. A lot of problems solved that way, guys. Really. All right. So when your mental framework entering the discussion makes all the difference in the world. Okay. Now let's think about your goals as the man leading. Okay. And it's good for women to hear this too. But your goals as the man leading is not to make her understand and agree with you. Okay. That's the goal for the woman. So the woman's goal, and we'll say the submissive and the dominant, all right? Because some people get all tied up in the gender roles because you're not allowed to have gender in 2022. The submissive and the dominant. Okay, I don't ascribe to that, but it doesn't matter. Okay, because you could tell literally you could have a gay couple following the same program and being successful with it if there's a defined dominant and a leader and then a defined submissive. Okay, so it works. It works. Well, as long as you have that role defined and understood. So the submissive role, which is usually the woman or the feminine role, is to want to be understood. Okay. And at least I won't say agreed on. So this is where the woman in the equation needs to give up some of her control and trust her partner. And that he is from the woman perspective, she needs to understand that she might not agree, your agreement. She might not get the man's agreement for which direction to go. And that's okay. All right. As long as she is understood and she trusts his leadership and direction, then she is fine. She could be like, I don't like it because he's not doing what I want exactly, but I'm not going to continue to propagate a conflict. I'm willing to see where this thing goes, right? Because I trust his direction, I trust his leadership. Now, if the woman does not trust the direction and leadership of the man or the dominant in the relationship, then she shouldn't be in a relationship with a guy. If you're a woman who can't trust male leadership because of your social conditioning, or if you're a guy who picked that woman, you're not going to do well. You see what I mean? There has to be a dominant and a submissive in the relationship as a general rule or thing. Now, sometimes like the dominant will defer to her, let's say, and I'm saying in a good way, not in a bad way, not putting her in a leadership position that she doesn't belong. But let's say her idea is the right one and yours is the wrong one as a guy. That's okay to adopt her idea. All right, I like your plan better. Let's do that. You're doing it from a position of dominance and authority. That's the difference. You're selecting and agreeing with that, and you're going to go forward, but it's because you're doing it because it's the best answer solution. You're not doing it to appease her. That's the difference. You don't do anything to appease her. You do things because it's the right answer for the relationship. Okay. In this circumstance, I mean, as far as appeasing. Okay. So trust me, if you're only trying to appease her, she will not trust your leadership and she will get bitchier and less attracted to you as the dominant or as the man. If she, if she knows that you're only going to agree with her and go with her idea because you think it's the best idea for the relationship, but if you don't think it's the best idea, you're going to tell her no and go with something else, she will trust you more. In the short term, she may be irritated with you, but in the long term, she's going to trust your leadership more. And that trust is absolutely imperative for success. Women all the time complain about guys and they say, I can't trust him, right? And it's not because he lies to her all the time, it's because he sucks at leading. What she's trying to illustrate is I don't trust this guy's leadership because he's not dominant enough and resolved enough and emotionally stable enough to say, no, that's not the way we should do this. We're going to do it this way. This is the plan right now, you know, and she might be too dominant or the submissive might be not submissive enough and not trusting enough to say, I don't like it, but okay, we'll do it your way and see what happens. And then, of course, not do punishing behaviors for the next 3 weeks up because she didn't like it. You know what I mean? It takes a healthy person to do either one of these things and a strong person. All right. And so the woman is looking for your understanding. If you're looking for her to understand you as the guy or as the dominant, your goals are wrong. And you're going to put yourself in a position of qualifying to her and putting her in a leadership position she doesn't want to be in. Because the submissive or subordinate is always wanting to be understood so she can be sure that her needs are met. You see how that works? You know your needs are going to be met more or not. You have a good idea about that because you're in charge. The person who's not in charge is subject to the decisions of the leader or the dominant. Being subject to those decisions, in order for her to trust those decisions, she has to know at the very least she's been listened to and understood. And on a existential level, the mammalian brain of a woman will feel a direct threat to her safety and well-being if she does not feel listened to or understood. A direct threat. And so guys who don't listen to their women because you're too busy trying to make her understand your point of view, you're failing and you're pushing her desires away and you're making her feel unsafe in that relationship. You're making her feel not able to trust your leadership or trust where you're going. You understand that? And so it's a massive screw up. And then when she doesn't trust your leadership, she has to step in now and be the dominant force. And this is where she acts like the dude and gets bitchy and this and that and the other. Do you think women want to act like the feminist ideal that everyone complains on the internet about? By and large, no, they don't. But the problem is they get into relationships with guys who don't know how to lead. And so they have to put themselves in that role in order to make sure their needs are getting taken care of. And next thing you know, she's in a relationship with somebody that she doesn't trust, isn't attracted to, often feels like she's raising another kid. You hear that one. It's not a good place to be. So you have to lead and you have to be, and that means, and part of leading means your goal as a man is not to have her understand you and then give you permission and call you a good boy and then let you go through with the action plan. That's not what it is. Your goal as a man is to get compliance, meaning the action plan, she's going to do the action plan with you. That's it. That's your only goal. Now, how do you get compliance? You get compliance because she feels like you've heard and understood her, and she trusts that you're going to take care of her. That's it. All right. How it gets taken care of, she's not that interested in. She might be curious. She might ask questions, of which, of course, you can answer those questions. All right. But it's her responsibility to seek understanding. If she wants more understanding to feel more comfortable, that's fine. But that's her responsibility to ask the right questions and seek that out. Okay. She might be in agreement with you. That's a good thing, but that's not the goal. You're not trying to convince her. You're making the right decision and you want her to follow that decision. And she follows the decision because she trusts your leadership. She trusts your dominance. She trusts your dominance because of who you are, not about anything you do. So who you are as that dominant, attractive man that she fell for is the number one reason. But the number two reason, which is just a very close number two, right? Because without it, she probably won't move forward with your plan. She'll obstruct it, block it, do punishing behaviors, emotionally distance herself, all kinds of things. For her to comply, she wants to feel like she was understood, because it doesn't matter how high SMV you are. If you don't know what her needs are and she doesn't get a sense that you are interested in trying to understand her needs, then how could you possibly make the right decision for her? That's what the message is to her, right? And so she has to know she's being at least understood. And that means her emotions are understood. And then her argument and reasoning follows that. Okay. So how you approach this discussion as the guy is going to frame her feeling understood, trusting your leadership, then going with the plan that you select. And the plan could be your idea, or it could be her idea. It could be a combination of both, but it's the one that you choose as the dominant in the relationship. And she, in compliance, follows it. All right. How you do that is through this acronym called LUCA. All right. It's easy and it's something that you need to implement. All right, guys. LUCA. LUCA stands for listen, understand, clarity, and action. So we'll say it again. LUCA stands for listen, understand, clarity, and action. So what you're going to do when you bring something up. So let's say she said something that implied that she made, like, use another example. She said something that she lied about somebody she used to bang, right? That implied that. So I might start the question off with, hey, so last night when we were hanging out, you said so-and-so about this. You said this about this guy. She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, but before when you told me about it, it was this other thing. And those things don't seem to match. So I want, I'm confused now as to what is going on here with that guy that you whatever. So I need you to explain to me more what actually happened. All right. Because and then that's all you do, right? And so you just you ask the question, the behavior. You said this, and it sounds like you're lying. Now, am I accusing her? Am I attacking her? Am I accusing her of lying? No, I'm not doing toxic patterns. I'm asking the right question, and I'm just going to listen to her answer. All right. And now maybe she lied. Let's say she lied. Let's say that's what happened. She said something to try to make it sound like it was like a one-time thing, but really it was like going on for a few months. All right. So you're listening to her, and then she tells you the real story. And then and so now you're listening and you're trying to understand from her perspective, why was she telling you something different than before? And like, let's say as you're listening and seeking this understanding, because the understand part isn't just understanding her words, but it's understanding empathetically. You have empathy for your partner, so you can understand what's her motivations. Why did she say something different before than now? What's is she saying now? What's her motivation now? Right? What's she not telling you? You see what I mean? That's what you're doing when you're seeking understanding. And you're just listening and asking questions that pertain to get you more understanding of of the story. And you're not judging either. Okay. You're not making her feel judged. And if she starts to get defensive, you just say, hey, I'm not accusing you or judging you right now. I want to understand what happened there. Okay. So don't get upset. I just want to know what's going on. And you see what I mean? And you keep it on the solution. You don't let her slide into defensive moves and attacking, defending, or any of that stuff. And you don't slide into it yourself, right? You just keep it on, like trying to get clarity, which is the part C. So let's say you're so you need clarity. So you're like, okay, so when you said it was just like a one-time thing, but it really wasn't a one-time thing, right? Like you were really together for like 3 months. Um, why would you just say it was a one-time thing then before? And if she might look at you like, I'm not trying to get, attack you or whatever, call you out on anything, but I just want to understand, was it? And then maybe you give clarity statement. You say, because, okay, if you say something that doesn't match the reality about some guy that, you see every so often in town and he was somebody you used to have sex with, if you say it was a one-time thing and I find out it wasn't, what happens is it makes me think that you're lying about other aspects of that relationship, that was more serious than you're letting off, and that I should be concerned. So that's the reason why I'm having a concern right now. We're talking about it. And so so that might not be the reason. So are you concealing something about this person in the nature of that relationship? You clearly did. Are you concealing any additional things that I would need to know about? Is the first question I have. And the second thing is, what was the reason for doing that before? You see, that's a clarity question, right? And she might say, well, it's just not a big deal. It didn't mean anything. I didn't want you to think that it was more than it is. I run into this guy all the time. I don't want you to be insecure. My last, and then you can say clarity statements. All right, but do I come across as insecure to you? Like, no, you don't. I just didn't want any trouble or whatever. And, okay. So then you can do, a statement like, okay, so what you're saying, what I'm hearing is that you just didn't want to make this big deal about it and just sort of said it that way. It was more than obviously one time, but it was like 3 months of you seeing this guy, but you just didn't want me to be alarmed. And she's like, yeah, that's basically it. She's like, so, she might say like, yeah, like I want to be with you. I care about you. I don't want to be with this guy. I don't want you to be concerned about it. And then now you have A, your action plan. So now A is like, all right, well, here's the thing. Don't lie to me again about stuff like that. And I go, if you do that, what happens is it makes me think that there's more to it than there should be. I don't care, if it was a 3-month relationship. I don't care if you saw this guy for 3 months. It doesn't bother me. It's the fact that you said, okay, one, I was just a one time, couple time hookup, but then it was really something that lasted longer. That makes the guy question, like, I know you're trying not to make me feel insecure or make me feel like, first of all, I'm not insecure. If you want to go be with this guy, go be with him. And that's fine and be over with. But I know you don't want that. All right. So it's not an insecurity issue. It's a trust issue. And I need to make sure that you're just always telling me the truth. And, and she might go, you know, she might go, yeah, well, I didn't, I wasn't, she might say, "Well, I didn't mean to like lie to you or whatever." And you'd be like, "Okay, well, it's fine. I know you didn't mean it. Just we'll make sure going forward, right? We're always, yeah." She's like, "Cool." Like, and you get that compliance, like that, at least that verbal agreement. And that's it. And then you drop it. And so now there's a frame there. Now, if she continues to do that behavior, now you can assume that she's definitely hiding stuff, right? And that there's something else going on. And you can start to execute other consequences, right? But that's how you would have that discussion to get her to be open to understanding and admitting to her faults in this situation. If you start off with toxic patterns and accusing her and criticizing her, it'll cause her to be defensive and you won't get anywhere. All right. Now, sometimes, you know, it's like, sometimes it's just like she's going to be, you're finding out that this is who she is, that she's, you know, run through a bunch of dudes in town and she's going to lie about it. And maybe, she wants to leave doors open and stuff. And so you exit that relationship, right? If she's not willing to do the action plan and demonstrate that that's not who she is, you see, and this is during that clarity phase, you say, look, I'm going to trust that you're a person that, wants, to be transparent and truthful and doesn't want to give any appearance of wanting to jump into another dude, right? But if you're going to not do the behaviors that demonstrate that, then there's going to be a problem. We're probably not going to last very long. You don't ever threaten a breakup, you know what I mean? But you just say like this is going to have bad consequences. You don't do ultimatums, but you're just stating the reality, right? During those clarity things. So I don't want that. So here's what we're gonna do, and here's the action plan. You know what I mean? And so that just an example, right? And so there's so many anecdotal examples. All right, and so yeah, that's how you do Luca. All right, so you guys understand that. Listen, understand, make clarity statements or ask clarity questions. She's really mad at you and she's like, you never, are considerate of me, blah, 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 or whatever. She's attacking, but she's not into a point where she's not at such a level though where you need to end the discussion, but she's starting to get there. You can go, hold on. So what I hear you see, was I inconsiderate yesterday when we did this together and that together? And she's just mad. Go like, don't get, I know you're upset, but I think I'm considerate for you a lot. But what I hear you saying is that you're not feeling like you were considered in the situation, and and that happens too often, right? Is that what you're trying to say? Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. You get clarity for these all or nothing statements, for these attacking statements, as long as she's not going into disrespect and emotionally out of control where you can't have that discussion anymore and you have to soft next, right? It's not into toxicity yet, but she starts to get into some of those things. You get clarity. All right. So when you go through the L and the U and the C, she feels heard and understood, which was your what you needed to do in order to get compliance. And then you say, okay, well, here's what we're doing going forward. All right. And then that's the action plan. And then she complies with it. Now, the way her mind will work, let's say she doesn't agree with your action plan, but she's willing to comply. Well, then she'll start with compliance, but then she'll start to try to understand empathetically why she's complying. So then it might be so for example, you know, let's not have a bunch of pictures, or remove pictures of our exes from our social media. For example, that's the boundary you guys have, right? She might not agree with that. She might think it's stupid, okay? But she complies. All right. Now, from compliance, and why did she, think it was stupid? Like her reasons might not be because she's holding on to the exes. Her reasons could be just because it's a pain in the butt, and it makes her like it's like she feels like she's erasing maybe parts of her history due to maybe a boyfriend insecurity. You know what I mean? And she feels like, she's being told what to do. So she might have, dominance issues or authority problems, And so there could be a bunch of reasons, but it's not because she's holding on to an ex, right? So she's willing to do it, but she doesn't really agree with it. She thinks it's stupid. She thinks it's a waste of time and energy, but she's willing to do it. Well, then after a while, after having done that, she tries to understand why your perspective. So then she might be telling her friends, well, we don't keep our pictures of our exes on our social media. That's I think it's kind of stupid, but I understand why he wants that, though. I do get his point of view. So we don't do that. Or I got rid of my pictures. You see, she'll at least try to understand your point of view once she's complied. Now, from that understanding, that can move into agreement, and usually does. So then it's like she's proud that she made that decision. She, in fact, will say it almost like it's her idea. She'll tell her friends, like, you shouldn't, yeah, well, you shouldn't keep pictures of your ex is hitting you up. You have pictures of him all over your social media. My boyfriend and I, we got rid of our pictures of exes on our social media, because it just opens the wrong doors. You should probably do that. She'll advise that to other people because she's in agreement now, but she didn't start off in agreement. She started off with not an agreement, but she complies to your leadership. So that's why compliance is the goal. A lot of times she'll just agree. A lot of times she'll seek that understanding. Well, so wait a second, you want to do that? How come? Or tell me why? Or, and then maybe she's just asking that question because she doesn't like the answer. But once she realizes that that's not going to work, and she has to, comply, or it's not going to be a continued relationship. Really, there's going to be a massive problem. Then it's like she'll comply, but if she needs to understand more, it's up to her to figure that out. She has her own agency in this. The submissive has agency, and that agency is to try to understand the direction, all right, and to comply with that direction. And if she can't comply with the direction, then to express that in communication so that the direction either changes or she submits to it or the relationship's over. You see what I mean? And so, but in the process of that compliance and seeking understanding, once she understands, she's often in agreement. But you guys are approaching these discussions trying to make her understand you like she is in charge. And what happens is she doesn't want to understand you. She wants to, and you've put her in charge effectively, which means that now she wants to just express her ideas and get your compliance to her direction. The power dynamic flips. And then what do you think happens to attraction? If she's supposed to be the submissive and the female in this sense, right? What do you think happens when she has to be the dominant? What do you think happens to her attraction and her desire for you? Right? So by approaching these conflicts wrong, you lose frame. And then you guys will come to me in consults or jump on, send me messages or DMs or emails, starting off with how she's in your frame. And then you will tell me a story about how she's not in your frame. All right. She's not in your frame if you're seeking understanding and permission to go forward. She's in your frame when she is the one seeking understanding, and you're listening to her trying to be understood and get her needs met. And then you make a decision and she complies, or she asks her own questions and gets to a point where she can comply to the plan. That's how you have frame. Getting her to agree, convincing her is not frame. You understand? And so this is a landmark thing for you guys. Those of you guys who made it to 123 minutes into this in this thing. And yes, I'm going to break it up into chapters so you can find this on its own. But this is like the golden ticket where most of you screw it up, right? And you'll be able to not screw it up just by doing that, just by doing Luca. All right. It's such an easy and effective thing to do. But yeah, there's a lot of framework here I had to build to get to Luca. 2 other videos that are a couple hours long and an hour and 20 minutes here. But the reason is because if you, without the background and understanding, you guys will screw the Luca thing up too, And so this is how you do this. This is how you have that conversation. Okay. And now during this Luca thing, you always want to be solution focused and empathetic to her needs and trying to understand her. On top of that, though, you do want to be sympathetic to her emotions. Her emotions are important to her. Okay. And they should be important to you. They're not your responsibility. They can't be. All right. But they are something that you need to consider. And having sympathy, saying, listen, I understand why this upsets you. And clarifying as to how you understand that will let her know that she's understood. You need to have her understand not just her point of view. She needs to feel like you understand her emotions too. Okay. And that's where being sympathetic is important. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to say yes to her and just go with her ideas or seek permission from her to do the next thing. The action plan may not be something she likes at all, but it's the best solution for the relationship. But she needs to be at least, you need to be at least sympathetic to her emotions about that, you know? Hey, I understand you don't like it. I understand this makes you a little bit upset, gives you anxiety. You're going to have to trust me on this one. Maybe part of the action plan is, look, we're going to do it this way. And if a couple months it doesn't feel good or it's not working out, let's have another talk about it. Right. That at least, okay, he understands I don't like it. We're willing to continue talking about it if this idea isn't working. You know what I mean? And so that's how you do it. And that's how you maintain the magic ratio. Because when she is expressing her grievances, you're listening to her and you're understanding her. And this is positive interaction. When you're getting clarity, even though it may be hard for her to hear some of that clarity or some of these things, it's not put out in a negative way. It's put out when it's done with sympathy and empathy, there's more of a positive emotion that's associated. And you walk away from this discussion with positive associations for your partner versus negative ones. And that's how you defeat this ratio. That's how you maintain more positive, because you can't remove negative. There's always going to be some semblance of negative feelings or thoughts or emotions, but you have to outweigh those negatives with the positives, and you have to outweigh it with both intensity and frequency by reducing the negatives through handling a conflict in a way that works well with her instinctual brain. Okay. It considers her emotions, which is part of her instinctual brain. And it also works well with yours, because at the end you get the solution, and the solution's focused is where you should be at as a guy and the dominant. You see, you're doing now communication that works well with how you're instinctually wired. That's why this works. Communication means a lot of different and very stupid things to people. And everybody says, oh, yeah, communication is a key relationship, blah, blah, blah. But they don't know what that means. And they don't know how to communicate with the other sex, or with with the woman, or with the woman doesn't know how to communicate with the man. You don't know how to communicate with your individual partners, understanding their motivations. You know what I mean? Their motivators, something that we work on in our year-long program. You don't understand them, so you can't communicate. You don't know how to give them a message that puts them in the direction you want to go, but that also gets their emotional buy-in, right? So she needs to, let's see, where are we at? Okay, so let's talk about what not to do now for the last, few minutes here. And these are the things that'll kill your relationship, because this is the what not to do. All right. And remember, her instinctual need is to have good feelings and to be the good person or the good chimp. And that always needs to be fostered in the discussion as the leader and as the guy. And as the woman, criticizing his capability is the downfall of where you're going to fall apart. Trying to be right, therefore attacking him and his capability. Because remember, guy wants to be useful and the girl wants to be the good person, right? Good chimp, useful chimp. If a guy is attacking her to make her feel less like a good person because of her wrongs that she did, that's going to have a detrimental effect on their relationship and how she feels. And guys will do this to get short-term gain and manipulation when they're trying to win, but the long-term effects are always detrimental. All right. And by making her out to be the bad chimp, and her feeling excessively guilty about that will only get you so far for a point. And after a while, she will have to make you into the villain, right? For her to accept herself, she has to be the good chimp and be seen as such by everybody else. And she wants to be seen that way by you. But if you hold that over her head, she will defend that to her death. And that's where most of you guys lose these arguments with her and lose these discussions, because you're making her feel like a bad person. And that if all you do is reinforce that she is a good person, and just because she did this wrong thing, that doesn't make her a bad person. However, not dealing with this problem effectively might make her a bad person. So we need to deal with it effectively, and that you accept her for who she is in the mistake. That goes really far. If she feels like she's not being demonized and made out to be a bad person, then that's good. Now, for the women, they need to make sure they're not making the guy feel like the bad person in a sense of not being useful. Not being a good caretaker would be being less useful, right? Not being capable would be less useful. So when accusations of you're just inconsiderate, or you don't care about me, or you don't care about anyone but yourself, or you're selfish, that's a lack of capability in being a good leader and caretaker for subordinates. And I say caretaker, I don't mean the way that a woman cares for kids, or a woman cares even for a guy, but I mean, caring for your tribe, like taking care of those needs, making sure resources and protection is available, and making sure needs are being met, right? And leading. And so you're saying he's not a capable leader. And when a woman does that to a man, that causes the man to lose those emotions for her. And so for the guy too, that's where these toxic patterns come in. And if your woman does all these things and makes you feel less capable, less like a man, less like a good capable leader, just because of the mistakes you've made, then she needs to maybe not be considered as a partner, right? If she's going to keep doing that. And so this is where the boundaries have to be. So we have conditions. The conditions of the relationship needs to be handling these conflicts in a healthy way, as I've laid out here. But the boundary for the relationship is that we don't do these other things. Okay. Now, first thing has been talked about in other places, and you can find it in the No More Mr. Nice Guy book. I don't look at that as my Bible or anything like a lot of people do. It's not impeccable, but one thing that the book No Mr. Nice Guy brings out is the concept of deering. So something that men tend to do, but either side should not do this. And that's where you defend or excuse or try to explain away or rationalize your behaviors. That is the kinds of things where you're trying to make her, yes, and it's by Robert Glover. Thank you. That is, but doesn't matter. Like, who cares? I'm telling you the thing right now. But that is the deering part of it. That is where you guys are trying to make her understand you, and to feel like you're a useful chimp by understanding why you did the bad thing, or defending the bad thing, or, well, I did the bad thing, but who cares? It wasn't that big of a deal. Or let me explain to you why I did this thing. Or, well, I did that, but you did this and that caused me to do that. All that stuff is you placating to her, you trying to make her understand, so you get her permission, her to say you're a good boy. Don't do it, because what it does is it causes her to feel what? Not listened to and not understood. And it causes her to feel like you're not going to fix or lead her through the problem. Okay. That's why you need to do Luca and not do Deering. She's like, you're a real asshole. And well, and you're like, hold on, we don't call each other names. So let's try again. So what's upsetting you? You did this, you did that. And you should have done that. You're being inconsiderate. She's coming at you with all of the stuff, right? She's mad and upset. You're listening because you have emotional self-control. You're not reliant on her for your sense of value. You have frame. So you're like, okay, tell me more about that then. I understand why you're upset. What about, okay, so tell me about this, right? Clarity, right? That's why you do that instead of deering. Not, well, okay, but I did that because of this, blah. Let me explain. All right. Don't explain yourselves, guys. So that's the first thing. That's actually toxic. And that's a toxic pattern between dominant support and submissive relationships. All right. Our leader subordinate relationships. And so you don't want to do that. Okay. And so you're not trying to be listened to and understood. All right. You're doing the listening and you're doing the understanding. What you're getting is compliance in the plan. All right. So that's first thing. So we got deering out of the way. You're not going to do that. Now, the other things are called the four horsemen, which is criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. The Gottman Institute can predict relationship failure based on whether people do these four or any combination of these in their relationship when they handle conflict. Pretty easy. If you guys are just criticizing each other, being defensive, not taking ownership, that leads to contempt. Contempt is the worst of them all. That's where you see this person. This is the devaluing, seeing the person as less of a person because of their behavior, or what happened, or whatever. And so instead of having gratitude and appreciation and radical acceptance for the mistakes and who they are, recognizing that they're a flawed human being just like everyone else, and you're having contempt. This person disgusts me. This person is less than me. And women and men, but particularly women, will do this a lot when the genuine desire is not there. You see, you guys want all those signs. How do I know she's genuine desire? Well, if she follows contemptuous behavior all the time, that in order to have control over you and to try to get you to qualify and to her and to have power through victimhood, you know what I mean? And to try to make herself superior to you through contemptuous behavior, that's a pretty good sign. Maybe the genuine desire isn't there. Or perhaps maybe she does not have the ability to have the oxytocin bond through her 30, 40, 50 partners she's had. I mean, sorry, that's a real thing. I know people don't like to hear it sometimes, but it's true. So, now you have, and then stonewalling. Stonewalling is where you will not allow the other person to communicate with you. It's not the same as a soft next. A soft next is setting the conditions for healthy communication, and you're delaying so that you guys can be in a place of having healthy communication. So you're delaying the communication for good reason, for reasons of boundaries and conditions. That's not stonewalling. That's healthy. Stonewalling is, I'm going to leave and not text her back. Stonewalling is, I'm going to interrupt her, or she's going to interrupt you and not listen to a word you're saying. That's another way of stonewalling. It's very subtle. People don't recognize, but it's exactly it. Not listening to your partner, and there's talking at them, talking over them constantly. That's a stonewalling, right? Being in the conversation, but shutting your brain off. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Okay. And not communicating your needs or emotions. All right. And then resenting that person afterwards and punishing behaviors. That's stonewalling. So these are all relationship killers. And so if your partner or you are doing these things, you are destroying your relationship piece by piece every time you do them. Okay. You're throwing off that magic ratio. And so think about an argument, a typical toxic argument where both of you are being critical of each other. You're being defensive. She's being contemptuous now towards you. And then you stonewall each other for a few days. How many negative interactions just happened in one argument? 5, 10, 20, 50. So, and those negatives built and were really intense. So then you make up, you bang it out. The attachments still are there. So you're back in it. You don't address the problems. And even if you address the problem in a healthy way later, you feel temporarily good, but you just had all of these negative interactions. So now let's look at that magic ratio. How many more positive interactions are you going to have? And to what intensity before this argument is meaningless? The reason why time matters is because you hope to have more positive interactions over a period of time. So imagine if you have arguments like that every week or even just every month. You can negate a whole month almost of positive through a really bad argument. And then all of these patterns. and then the resentment that follows. Because when the resentment follows, then that's more negative interactions. So you see how having a bad conflict can really throw this magic ratio off and really throw you into having more negatives than what a 5-to-1 ratio is required, or better than that. And you can see how this just causes a slow now erosion of your relationship and your perceptions of your partner. And the sad thing is you'll have people who break up just so because of this. And that chick will walk out of your life, because chicks do this. I mean, women tend to do this, a bit with their perceptions. Just in the fact that she is usually in the submissive position, all right, or should be, or genetically should be, we'll say, is wired to be. And so what happens is, or it's a continued negative, all right, when finally she walks away because she's devalued her partner. She doesn't see her partner as worthy enough to be with her. She thinks she can do better than him. And she thinks that he's not good enough for her, right? And then he hasn't changed anything about himself other than maybe improved. She was doing all of the toxic patterns, maybe. Maybe he was doing some too, right? Maybe both were. And then she walks away. Well, what happens is, what if he continues to make himself better? Or what if he stays the same? Doesn't even matter. After that breakup, and then with faded effect bias, so through time, all that devaluing and that negative emotion gets forgotten about. And in separation in time, you know what I mean? He ends up with, she ends up going, man, I really miss him. 6 months later, I really miss him. He was good about that. He was good about that. So she has to continue to fuel her contempt for this guy in order to keep this going, or she's just going to realize that she broke up with somebody who was a good partner to her. And it was and they can't even figure out why the breakup happened. And the reason why it happened was because of this conflict management, right? In her brain, he was less of the guy. He was no longer her hypergamous best, just right up in here, by allowing this devaluing to occur through toxic patterns in conflict. And then smoke clears, and now she wants him back. Happens all the time, right? And then a lot of times those relationships will never come back. Most of the time they never do. And that's the sad part, right? Because, you are either growing together and fostering a deeper frame and a deeper relationship, or you're not. And if you're not, you're gradually, even if it's just a little bit each week, slowly growing apart, because it's getting more and more dull and more status quo. And eventually it's not going to be worth sticking together for, right? So you have to get rid of these toxic patterns. First and foremost, even if you do everything else wrong, you and your partner have to eradicate these. You have to talk about them. You have to recognize them. You have to recognize Deering as a man, particularly, or as the dominant. All right. But both of you need to recognize it. All right. Both partners should know. Both partners need to recognize criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. That is got to be a early frame thing for you if you're not in a relationship yet with somebody, but you see them as potential. You need to talk about how you guys have handled conflict in your past relationships, what went wrong, and how to handle it in the future. If you don't do this, you're probably going to destroy your relationship, or you're going to allow your partner to do it, or you're going to get in a relationship with someone who just isn't capable of having a healthy relationship to begin with. And so that is what you have to do. And I'll provide you with one more thing, which is the worst quality a person in general, but particularly a woman, because I say that because I'm mostly advising men, can have. The worst quality that will exaggerate every negative and toxic pattern and will hinder any ability of doing anything healthier in return. The worst quality is what? What do you guys think it is in the chat? I'll give you guys 5 seconds to answer. Let's see if anyone can answer. I'll look at the chat right now. I got no supers. That's fine. I don't need it. I got quality stuff here. Thank you. I appreciate it. Worst quality. Let's talk about this one for a second, and I'll give you guys the answer. Ryan Stone says pair bonding isn't real. Well, if Ryan Stone is now understanding pair bonding the way that I do, well, I'm going to say Ryan is my friend. In fact, I'm doing a show with him tomorrow on Ali's channel. He might be wrong. Okay. Or he might just have a different understanding of what the word means. Pair bonding has been confused to mean bonding for life with the same partner. That's not what it means. But people use the word pair bonding to mean that a lot. And that I would agree with Ryan that does not exist. You don't necessarily, I'm bonding with this person for life, meaning, oh, I have an attachment to this person and that I can never have another attachment to another person ever again. Okay, so that's not true. So, right, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know about it. But Ryan and I are in agreement on most things, but I mean, we won't always agree, and that's okay, you know. So I don't know what he means by that. So I can't characterize his argument, but I do agree when people use the word pair bonding to mean two people mating for life, that's not what pair bonding actually means in the scientific literature. It's kind of a misnomer because it gets confused now. Pair bonding, what when I refer to it or what it really means is having the neurochemical reaction to feel bonded to the other person. But that doesn't mean you can't have that bonded feeling with another person or another person in the future or in the past. Do you know what I mean? So bonding is, I mean, if you are with somebody and then you break up and it hurts really bad, right? Of course, because that you don't get that oxytocin and that vasopressin, if you know, in that reaction that you've associated with that partner. So that hurts and there's a pain and there's withdrawal, almost like a drug withdrawal. But then after time and understanding, you don't have that association anymore. And then you meet somebody else that you like even better than that person. Well, you're now pair bonded to that person. You get what I mean? So you can have bonding. It's really not a good word. I hate the word pair bonding because it's confusing, but they used it in the literature. Usually it's by, we could call them blue pilled, monogamously driven, lack of understanding scientists who are discovering and learning things and just like, you know, about animals. And so they use the term pair bonding because it fits their worldview of, you know, monogamous mating. But, and I'm not saying monogamous mating doesn't exist because obviously it does. But the term is confusing. I don't like it. I only use the term because it is what's used in scientific literature. But just think of it as bonding with somebody else and having that oxytocin reaction. So if I say a woman has been through too many dudes and had too many experiences, some of them traumatic, and now she has can't bond with a dude the right way, so she can't pair bond. What I mean is she doesn't get a good oxytocin reaction to that guy through sex and through that physical and sexual closeness, which then compromises her emotional buy-in for wanting to stick with a relationship and learn conflict management and be a better partner. You get what I'm saying? She's more easily to discard a relationship, even if she really likes the guy, because her neurochemical system is blunted. All right. So when I say a woman can't pair bond because of these things, that's what I mean. I'm not saying that she can't mate with a guy for life because she's not a virgin. You know, like I'm not saying anything that extreme. All right, I'm just talking about that neurochemical reaction. All right. So now, not to get into the weeds, what was the thing I was gonna say? Um, what is that one thing? The relationship, the ultimate killer, the worst quality a woman could have. All right, if you stayed to the end, congratulations. The worst quality a woman can have, and arguably a man too, I would say, is arrogance. Okay. I don't know if that's the worst quality a man can have. I haven't really looked into it that far, but I know for a woman, for sure. What do I mean by arrogance? Believing that her point of view is the only point of view, having a lack of personal responsibility, that anything that would imply fault, having an ego to a point where she thinks that she is righteous and right and her stuff is the right way, and everybody else and anyone else who doesn't agree with her is stupid. It's not solipsism. Solipsism is just seeing things only from her point of view, for sure, but it's not necessarily believing she's right all the time. And a lot of women who are arrogant will say, "No, I don't think I'm right all the time." But then they proceed to handling every single conflict that they ever have from a position of righteousness. It's a person, if they see other people that she disagrees with contempt, she makes assumptions about other people. She has an ego that is just out of control because truthfully, she's deeply insecure and therefore overcompensates. She demonizes other people. She will do all of the toxic patterns if she's arrogant and thinks she's on a higher plane than you. If she can't take personal responsibility, if she can't say, you know what, I was wrong there and I screwed that up, then it's a no-go for any sort of relationship, in my opinion. That's a hard boundary for me. She has to be willing to admit fault, and you do too. That doesn't mean you grovel and apologize and cry about it, all right? And make it more than what it is. You can apologize. There's nothing wrong with that. You can say the words, I'm sorry. I think men are a little bit weak in this space who can't do that, in my opinion. But it's like it's just having the ability to recognize fault. All right, that's really what it boils down to when you're at fault, and that's the reason why it's the worst quality is because you can't change anything about yourself if you don't recognize a problem. So if she is unwilling to recognize that she is the problem in certain behaviors and circumstances and certain things she's doing, then she'll never change her behavior. If she has toxic arguing patterns, well, let's say she's in disagreement about something and she's so arrogant that she won't accept your leadership. She won't accept your boundaries. She won't accept your condition. She's going to argue everything that you try to do with her. And then even if she sticks around because, your SMV is high and she has emotions for you, she will arrogantly think that she's the better of the two of you or try to convince herself of that all the time. And she will, any conflict, bring out the toxic patterns. She will see you in the contempt because how dare you go against her when she's clearly right, right? She'll see everything as a personal attack on her. It's just insane how big of a killer of a human being pride and arrogance can be, let alone a woman. It's the downfall of a woman. It's the most non-feminine quality. Like femininity does not go with arrogance. Being a attractive feminine woman and arrogance does not go together. Confidence, sure. Being confident can be very attractive. Being arrogant though, thinking you're better than other people, thinking you're above them when it's not of anything objective, just because of your point of view or your way of seeing the world, biggest downfall. And that leads directly to contempt because as soon as you're in opposition, as soon as you tell her no, soon as you say no, you do the Luca thing as you're supposed to, and the action plan is this, and she don't like it, she's gonna stonewall you for days. She's gonna see you in contempt. She's gonna do punishing behaviors because how dare you not do what she thinks you should do? It's absolute bullshit. You know what I mean? And so, thanks, Marty. I appreciate it, bro. And yeah, hop in there, man. It'd be good to see you guys. I'm doing a Zoom call tonight for all the guys. So, guys in my group, we'll talk tonight. What do we got here, Zach? Appreciate the slightly off topic. What's your opinion on my girlfriend getting a male weight training coach over a female training coach? Well, it depends on It just depends, dude. It's a tough one. I mean, what's the motive? I need to know more. Like, what's the motivation behind that? Was it just a not thinking about that and just doing that as a selection? Is it group fitness? Is it one on one? Just her and him? Where is the sessions being held? Is it someplace? You know what I mean? I need to know more about this information. Is she opening it up and doing it? You have to ask yourself, is she opening it up and doing it because she wants to follow leadership from a different attractive male? Or, is it just because he's a good trainer and because he was available? Did she go into the gym and just, you know, link up with this guy, right? Is this happened recently? You know what I mean? I don't know, man. I need to know more info, right? Because there could be, like for example, like let's say she joins a fitness weight loss challenge, and some of the trainers are male, and it's group fitness. But she consults the nutrition coach as a male, right? Well, I mean, she just called the number, right, to get going on this program. I wouldn't consider that necessarily a bad thing. You know what I mean? I wouldn't consider that a major, like she's trying. Was she trying to target and select the guy over a female? That's the question you need to look at and ask yourself. All right. Was she just in the circumstance of needing a trainer, joined a program called The Thing, did a referral, right? And she ended up with a guy, or was she intentionally choosing this particular guy? And then if she's intentionally choosing this particular guy, why? What's the reason? Well, is he the best trainer in town? Maybe, maybe not. Look at that objectively. And that's what you need to do and figure that out. You know what I'm saying? Oh, thanks, Brian. Brian's in my group, just threw me $10. That's fine, bro. Come back next time you're in Michigan. I'll buy a drink with that. I'm not having alcohol anymore, so I'll just have, which is weird, by the way, guys. I'm not having alcohol anymore. Um, Alpha Brain. Yeah, my misspelling on that short video, or Alpha Brain, Alpha Brian. Hilarious. Anyway, God, I need a handler at all times. So, but anyway, so good series. I'm gonna have this put in a playlist, at some point soon. I'm gonna have my assistant do that, chop it up into chapters, maybe do separate video things, like separate video playlists so it's more digestible. But the series is about 6 hours long, and it's a course in and of itself, and so it's really everything you need to know. You know what I mean? Um, Last final question on a personal side of it, though. What's it like not drinking anymore? It's actually pretty awesome. I'm actually, you know, I just, stopped. It was just a lifestyle change with a new girl and myself, and we just decided to do it, and I still go out and still do stuff, but I mean, but I'm just not having alcohol. And it does not say I'll never have alcohol again. It's like I'm not an alcoholic or anything. I don't have a problem there. But it was to a point where I got back from Afghanistan a few years ago, and I was just drinking frequently, and I was going out all the time, and I was do a boat party, or do this thing, or go to somebody's house, or go to the bar. And I had a kind of a fast life of going out a lot. And, that extended even to the house and being at home with my last girl. She was a big drinker, still is a big drinker, which is actually a problem, I think, for her. And so we were just, and actually it was problem probably in our relationship. I didn't even really notice that. Your emotional self-control is down. You make problems that don't exist when you're inebriated. And then that wasn't me being inebriated necessarily, right? But I don't, even not being intoxicated, even being tipsy or whatever, a few drinks in, can be less calculated. You know what I'm saying? And, and in any sense, but what I noticed is just like age related things happening in my body that had never happened before. because I got back and I was just drinking, like I was still working out and doing stuff, but I was just drinking. And I'm like, dude, like my metabolism's not as good. Like I'm not recovering as well. Like I'm having just sort of weird things. And, so I got rid of it about a couple months ago. And it's like I sleep better. I feel better. Now I've been on deployments where I've gotten rid of it, but the environment was drastically different. So I couldn't really compare the two things because of going in a combat or a training environment. We're generally now, okay, I gave up alcohol because the environment doesn't allow for it, but now I'm not sleeping right. And now there's a whole bunch of other things that aren't in play about self care, maybe, usually, and with the nature of my kind of work. So what ends up happening, like I notice the difference, but I don't, right? But being able to make good lifestyle changes here at home and then choosing to not drink, I noticed the big time difference. And so now I'm in this process of cleaning my diet up, getting a better exercise program down and training a little bit more and being more holistic about that too. Training more for longevity rather than just smashing people against the wall or whatever, right? And so yeah, I feel a ton way better. I don't think I'll go back. I won't go back to frequent drinking again. I'm not saying I'll never have an alcoholic beverage again because it's not. I don't think there's anything wrong with having it occasionally, but what it does to your body, especially as you get past the age of 30 for girls, but even for girls though, I mean, you'll notice like women, particularly I date, and have classically dated younger women in their 20s. So the first wall that girls will hit is between, 18 and 22, 23 when they go to college a lot of times, or they're friends with people, going to college or whatever, and they're young and they're partying a lot. They're partying a lot and they're drinking a lot and they're eating like crap. And so it's the alcohol plus the eating like crap. Chicks will get fat, right? So you see a lean girl out of high school will get overweight by the time she's 22, 23. So that's the first law. That's the first kind of wall for young girls that I've noticed is they'll just start to gain weight and not in the right places. And a lot of that is alcohol. And a lot of that is their metabolism and is there the food, the nasty party food that they're eating and bad diet habits. Right. And so then usually that party girl, if she hasn't gotten completely obese, will start to recognize that she's not as hot. And so she'll start to clean it up around, 22, 23, whatever. She'll maintain she'll lose some weight. She'll get into fitness maybe, but then she'll still be drinking. Right. And so that alcohol will really start to take age related effects and accelerate the wall for a girl, like between the age of like 27, 28 to about 32, 33, is that she will age and look like crap and it's not just age though, it's her behavior by drinking and not allowing that growth hormone to do its job at night when she sleeps and drinking frequently and drinking, to excess different things, it starts to destroy how she looks. And so even if she stays fit, her facial features or wrinkles, like things really start setting in because she's just drinking too much. And so, and guys run into a similar problem, but guys will run into that problem a lot of times. They'll get the dad bods in 30, but it even exaggerates more after 40 for a man. Like, you can maintain really good physical capabilities if you've done it all your life, but you start throwing alcohol in the mix, and it's not necessarily getting drunk, although that's not good either, but it's like frequent drinking, like having that cocktail like all the time, 4 or 5 times a week. It starts to kill your sleep and your growth hormone, and it starts to mess with your hormones and your way your body processes food, and then you start getting age related things, and it's not good. Your metabolism goes down. Some of you guys will start losing your hair. You guys start getting wrinkles in places. Your body won't recover as well. And so yeah. So I mean, dumping the alcohol and keeping it for special occasions or not at all. It's been good to me. So maybe it'll be good to you too. All right. Well, that's definitely the end now. You guys take care.